Battlefield 3, the first-person shooter game that is a direct continuation of its predecessor, Battlefield 2. Hey, I'm Matt, and in this video we're going to discuss about 10 good and bad things in the game Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 was developed by DICE and was published by EA in 2011. The game was released to the PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. The story follows two characters, Henry Blackburn and Dmitry Mayakovsky. The players get to play several characters in order to follow the story. And without further ado, let's go into the list of 10 good and bad things in the game Battlefield 3. We will start with the 5 good things. Number 1. Sounds. DICE managed to implement great sounds to their games over and over again. So why should it be any different with Battlefield 3? Surprise, surprise, it's not. Running through the environment while constantly hearing people yelling orders is quite fun and intense. And the sounds of the bombs, guns, choppers, and in general the sound of war was made in a very convincing way. It helped me as a player to be very invested in the game. I noticed while I was playing it that I was very focused as to not get distracted from the sound that I was hearing in the environment, and I specifically remember a moment where I zoned out because I wanted to listen to the other characters. But then I heard one gunshot sound and I snapped out of it and kept playing the game all focused. Number 2. Environment. The Battlefield franchise has succeeded numerous times to give the game a realistic feeling. And I talked about the sound before, but that's because it had a major impact on my gameplay and I wanted to talk about it separately. The environment of the game is very well done for a game that was released in 2011. The building, the car, the outfit, the tanks, and more were beautifully created, but the peak of the environment was the explosion and the bullets flying through the air. There's also the dust that is visible in the air sometimes as well, but the fact that the explosion looks really good really helped the game in my opinion, and that's because players really love to see these kind of explosions. The levels are organized very well, maybe disorganized is the right way to put it. Tunnels and underground facilities looks very realistic, maybe a bit over-exaggerated sometimes. There are a lot of factors in the environment that are good. But overall, it's much better in this game where all the parts fits together perfectly. Number 3. Weapons. There are a lot of different weapons in this game, just like any other first-person shooter game. But I really enjoyed the type of weapon that I found here. The variety is interesting in most part and it's very easy to find the right gun to the player. It differs from player to players, of course. Different weapons have different recoils, which is also something that the players need to take in consideration. In shooter games, I usually find myself like to have a type of weapon that was taken from the enemy, and although it's very similar in this game as well, I found myself liking the starter weapon much more than I liked the enemy's weapons. The sight indicators bothered me a bit in some weapons, but luckily for me I didn't have a problem with the weapons that I chose. Using grenades, as usual, was a lot of fun. Number 4. Variety of characters. Playing a variety of characters is not a new thing in first-person shooters. I remember playing Call of Duty 2 about the Second World War, where the player played a variety of characters in different places. In this game it's not so different, but what I liked about this in this game it was that all of these characters surrounded only 2 people, and as the story progressed the game unveiled more and more information. Now most of these characters aren't very interesting at all, but seeing their part in the story is very interesting. In my opinion, the only reason that DICE decided to have these characters is because they wanted to find a way to tell the story from other people's perspective. But unfortunately, not all the characters survived to tell the story. But on a happy note, it also added quite a lot to the story. Number 5. Movement. I was surprised to see how smooth the movement is. Now the reason that I say it is because it felt really good to move around the map. Now I don't compare it to the other games in general, I only compare it to the other Battlefield game that I played so far. I really enjoyed moving around and avoid bullets and missiles so swiftly, unlike Battlefield 5 where it didn't feel that smooth in comparison. Jumping was mostly unnecessary based on the levels, but when I needed to jump, it moved pretty well. And when I say pretty well, I mean that I didn't feel the character dragged down by the gear. And in a few other Battlefield games, I could feel it pretty obviously. So you could say that in terms of realism, this game movement is not very realistic, but it's still very fun. Quick stop for a second, if you do like this content, please consider to leave a comment and subscribe. The 5 bad things. Number 1. Bugs and glitches. For a game that has been released for more than 10 years now, I was surprised to see that there are still some bugs and glitches that can stop the main campaign entirely. If it were some minor bugs that didn't really have much of an impact on the game or the gameplay, I could understand that there's no reason to fix them. But it isn't the case. For example, Operation Guillotine, which is the 5th mission in this game. It has 2 main bugs that are making this level intolerable. The first bug was in the beginning of the level, where the player needs to jump over a fence with the help of other characters. It's pretty simple actually. The player needs to stand close to another character and press the button that's supposed to appear. This will play the animation that shows the character jumping over the fence. But for some reason that sign didn't appear and I couldn't continue with the mission. I needed to search the solution online, and while I found many people that it happened to, it wasn't really easy to find the answer. The other main bug was a few steps later when I needed to take an outpost. So I had an indicator that showed me where is that outpost. But after I took over this outpost, this indicator didn't appear and it didn't show me the next objective. It was pretty easy to fix this bug because all I needed to do is just continue with the level until it fixed itself. But it shouldn't happen and it's disappointing. Number 2. Long blank moment. There are many parts where the NPCs are talking with each other and with you. And although it's normal in this kind of game, in this specific game it was very tedious. The conversations were very long, very boring, and not much informative as well. Now mind you, while most of these conversations are occurring, the player can't do anything but looking around. And too often, there were long moments where one of the characters is listening to another character on a radio, a character that you can't even hear. And it led to some long moments where the player couldn't do anything but try to listen and look at the environment. It's not a field trip, mind you, it's an FPS game. Number 3. Story. Although I did enjoy the storytelling of the game, I didn't really enjoy the story itself. The story was, how to say it, pretty vanilla. It was so similar to many war game stories. The bad guys have bombs, the good guys are held in captivity and being interrogated, and meanwhile there's a whole war going outside. It wasn't special in any way. Oh, and as in most cases, the good guys win and the whole world is saved. So yeah, pretty generic. Number 4. Infinite ammo. No, this game doesn't really have an infinite ammo, but it rarely happens when you're out of bullets, which makes it feel like you have infinite ammo. Now this is an issue of both developers and players, because in games where players have limited ammo, they constantly need to find more, or oftentimes change their weapon. Now this is a challenging task sometimes, but more than that, the players get to experience the hard work that the developers put in the weapons and ammo. But when there's infinite ammo, the game is significantly less challenging, less variable, and put the developers' hard work in vain, which in my opinion it's a lose-lose situation. Number 5. Quick time events. This will be quick. I don't think that first-person shooters should have quick time events. It just feels out of place and oftentimes it's pretty annoying. I know that many FPS games tried to do it over the time, but I didn't find any of them that did it really good. Take that as a lesson. And that was the list. In conclusion, moving around the map while hearing the sounds of the environment was very captivating. Although the story wasn't very good and it didn't draw me into the game, I did enjoy the gameplay and the weapons that I chose. The quick time event just didn't go well with the game, and the long moments of doing nothing and listening to boring conversation were pretty frustrating. But the worst things for me were the bugs and the glitches. If you played this game, please consider to leave a comment down below and subscribe. And that's all for the video. Stay well everyone, and don't forget, enjoy your games.